So, when you think about AI for coding, you're probably picturing an assistant, right? Something that suggests the next line of code or maybe helps you track down a nasty bug. But what if we're talking about something else entirely? An AI that's not just an assistant, but a fully autonomous engineer. Okay, let's really dive into this. This right here, this is the massive claim made by the creators of a platform called Maria. They're not calling it an assistant or a co-pilot. No, they're calling it a self-driving development AI. I mean, that is a bold statement. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
Exactly my thought. It's really easy to make these huge claims, but what in the world does self-driving actually mean when you're talking about writing software? Is this just clever marketing? Or is there a real fundamental shift in technology happening here? That's what we're going to break down.
And the ambition behind this is just huge. The documentation claims this approach can lead to a tenfold improvement in productivity. The 10x developer has always been this kind of mythical figure in our industry, but a 10x AI agent? Now that is a goal worth looking into.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by figuring out what this self-driving idea is actually built on. It's something that they call engineering modes. Then we'll get practical and look at a real case study, the Quicksort project, to see how this agent takes a plan and actually turns it into a product. And finally, we'll zoom out and ask the big question: what does this all mean? All right, let's get into the engine room. To even begin to understand how an AI can act on its own, we have to look at its core skills. And that's where this whole concept of engineering modes comes into play.
The key idea here is that an engineering mode isn't just some vague ability. It's a specific, concrete, and observable action. Think of them like individual tools in a giant toolbox. So instead of just generating a blob of text, the AI can officially write a file, run a test, or commit to Git. They're actual verbs.
And the sheer number of these skills is what's really wild. The system has over 120 of them. This is just a tiny sample, but you can see it covers the entire development lifecycle. Everything from basic file system stuff and debugging code, all the way to version control with Git and even deploying the final product. The whole shebang.
Okay, so we've got this theoretical toolbox with over 120 skills, but does it actually work in the real world? To find out, we're going to look at a project the Maria agent was actually assigned, taking a simple quicksort algorithm and building it out.
And listen, this wasn't some simple Hello Worlds task. The goal, and this is taken directly from its statement of work, or SOW, was to build a full-featured suite around this one algorithm. That means comparing it to other algorithms, visualizing how it works, and getting it ready for production. The project was broken down into these really clear phases in the plan. The agent had to build a way to compare different sorting algorithms, create a visualizer that you could see right in your terminal, move the whole thing over to TypeScript, and then finally build an interactive demo for the web. So with that plan all laid out, the agent was basically set loose. Let's look at a couple of the key steps to see how it used those engineering modes we were just talking about to get the job done all on its own. First up, one of the main goals from the project plan, creating a tool to actually see the sorting algorithm do its thing, right in the command line using ASCII characters. Text art. This means it has to generate code, create files, and of course, test and debug it all.
And here you see that connection perfectly. To get this done, the agent activated a very specific sequence of skills. It generated the code it needed, wrote that code to new files, debugged the logic to make sure the visualization looked right, and then executed tests to make sure it all worked. It's a clear chain of distinct actions.
All right, next, let's check out a different kind of task. The agent also had to build a framework to compare quicksort's performance against other algorithms like merge sort and heap sort. This is a much more analytical job. So for this part of the project, it reached into its toolbox and pulled out a different set of tools. It generated the code for the other algorithms, sure, but then it kicked into its benchmarking mode to measure performance, wrote some new tests for accuracy, and then used a report generating mode to wrap it all up. So after all of that autonomous work, the generating, the testing, the benchmarking, what was the actual output? The whole point of that comparison suite was to get clear, data-driven results, and that's exactly what the agent delivered in its final project summary. And there it is. This chart, pulled straight from the project's final report, shows the performance comparison for sorting 1,000 elements. And as you can see, Quicksort was the fastest. This isn't a simulation or a guess. This is the concrete, measurable result of a project that was executed autonomously by an AI, starting from just a high-level plan. Okay, so let's zoom back out. We've seen the theory of these engineering modes and we've watched them in action on a real project. So, what's the big takeaway here? How is this actually different from the AI tools that we're all using today? And this right here is really the core distinction. An AI assistant is a tool that helps you do the work. It operates at the level of a single line or maybe a function. An autonomous agent, at least as it's defined here, operates at the level of the entire project. You give it a plan, and it executes the whole life cycle of tasks all by itself. So let's just recap the key takeaways. What we're looking at here is a potential shift from AI as a tool to AI as an autonomous partner. And this autonomy, it's not magic. It's built on a solid foundation of over 120 specific skills. It all works by following these structured project plans, and its reach covers the entire development workflow from the very beginning to the very end. All of this leads to a pretty fascinating and maybe even a little bit of a provocative question. For years, we've been talking about AI as a tool that helps us get our work done. But if an agent can autonomously take a plan and deliver a finished product, well, we might need to start thinking about AI not just as a tool, but as a genuine, productive member of the team. So, what do you think?